Hello and welcome to today's episode which deals with microeconomics. Let's first understand the term microeconomics. Microeconomics, from Greek prefix micro meaning small and economics, is a branch of economics that studies the behavior of individuals and small impacting organization in making decisions on the allocation of limited resources. Typically, it applies to markets where goods or services are bought and sold. Microeconomics examine how these decisions and behaviors affect the supply and demand for goods and services, which determines prices, and how prices in turn determines the quantity supplied and quantity demanded of goods and services. Macroeconomics, which involves the sum total of economic activity dealing with the issue of growth, inflation and unemployment. Microeconomics also deals with the effect of national economic policies such as changing taxation levels. With this, we cover microeconomics in a micro way. However, after a quick introduction about myself, I would get into details with the same topic. I am Ms. Pallavi Mohan, currently working in an MNC, have worked for 15 years in management, marketing, operations and various other departments. Today, we will take a broad overview of the various concepts in microeconomics. But before we go into details, it is very crucial to understand the term supply and demand. In microeconomics, supply and demand is an economic model of price determination in a market. It concludes that in a competitive market, the unit price for a particular good will vary until it settles at point where the quantity demanded by consumers at current price will equal the quantity supplied by producers at current price, resulting in an economic balance for price and quantity. The four basic laws of supply and demand are: first, if demand increases, demand curve shifts to the right and supply remains unchanged. A shortage occurs, leading to a higher stability price. Second, if demand decreases, demand curve shifts to the left. Supply remains unchanged. A surplus occurs, leading to a lower stability price. Third, if demand remains unchanged and supply increases, supply curve shifts to the right. A surplus occurs, leading to a lower stability price. Fourth, if demand remains unchanged and supply decreases, supply curve shifts to the left. A shortage occurs, leading to a higher stability price. One of the goals of microeconomics is to analyze market mechanism that establishes relative prices amongst goods and services and allocation of limited resources amongst many alternative uses. Microeconomics analyzes market failure where markets fail to produce efficient results and describes the theoretical conditions needed for perfect competition. Significant fields of study in microeconomics include general stability, markets under asymmetrical information, choice under uncertainty and economic applications of game theory. Also considered is the elasticity of products within the market system. Assumptions and definitions. The fundamentals of microeconomics lies in the analysis of the preference relations. Preference relations are defined simply to be a set of different choices that an actor can choose, a K-cell matrix space. that actors can also compare between any two bundles of choices. Completeness of the relationship. Microeconomics analyses are conducted mainly through imposition of additional constraints on the preference relations or even relaxation of the above stated assumptions, although such relaxation makes the problem much harder to analyze. The theory of supply and demand usually assumes that markets are perfectly competitive. This implies that there are many buyers and sellers in the market and none of them have the capacity to significantly influence prices of goods and services. In many real-life transactions, the assumption fails because some individual buyer or sellers have the ability to influence prices. Quite often, a sophisticated analysis is required to understand the demand-supply equation of a good model. However, the theory works well in situations meeting these assumptions. Mainstream economics does not assume form of social organization. In fact, much analysis is devoted to cases where so-called market failures lead to resource allocation that is suboptimal by some standard. Defense spending is the classic example, profitable to all for use but not directly profitable for anyone to finance. In such cases, economists may attempt to find policies that avoid waste either directly by government control, indirectly by regulations that induce market participants to act in a manner consistent with the optimal welfare, or by creating missing markets to enable efficient trading where none had previously existed. This is studied in the field of collective action and public choice theory. Market failure is positive economics. Microeconomics is limited in implication without mixing the belief of the economist and their theory. The demand for various commodities by individuals is generally thought as an outcome of the utility maximizing process, with each individual trying to maximize their own utility under a budget constraint and a given consumption set. The supply and demand model describes how prices vary as a result of a balance between product availability at each price, supply, and desire of those purchasing power at each price, demand. Microeconomics topics. The study of microeconomics involves several key areas: demand, supply, and equilibrium, balance. Supply and demand is an economic model of price determination in a market. It concludes that in a competitive market, the unit price for a particular good will vary until it settles at a point where the quantity demanded by a consumer will equal the quantity supplied by producers, resulting in an economic balance for price and quantity. Measurement of elasticities. Elasticity is the measurement of how responsive an economic variable is to a change in other variable. Elasticity can be quantified as the ratio of the percentage change in one variable to the percentage change in another variable when the latter variable has a causal influence on the former. It is a tool for measuring the responsiveness of a variable or of the function that determines it. Frequently used elasticities include price elasticity of demand, supply, income, substitution between factors of production. Consumer demand theory. Consumer demand theory relates preference for the consumption of both goods and services to the consumption expenditures. Ultimately, this relationship between preference and consumption expenditure is used to relate preferences to consumer demand curves. The link between personal preferences, consumption and the demand curve is one of the most closely studied relations in economics. It is a way of analyzing how consumers may achieve equilibrium between preferences and expenditure by maximizing utility subject to consumer budget constraints. Theory of production. Production theory is the study of production or the economic process of converting inputs into outputs. Production uses resources to create a good or service that is suitable for use, gift giving in a gift economy or exchange in a market economy. This can include manufacturing, storing, shipping and packaging. Some experts define production broadly as all economic activity other than consumption. They see every commercial activity other than the final purchase as some form of production. Cost of production. The cost of production theory of value is the price of an object determined by the sum of the cost of the resources that went into making it. The cost can comprise any of the factors of production: labor, capital, land and technology. Perfect competition. Perfect competition describes market such that no participant are large enough to have the market power to set the price of a homogeneous product. An example is eBay. Now let's discuss perfect monopoly. A monopoly exists when a single company is the only supplier of a particular commodity. Oligopoly. An oligopoly is a market form in which a market or industry is dominated by a small number of sellers. Oligopolies can result from various forms of collusion, which reduces competition and lead to higher cost of consumers. Market structures. The market structure can have several types of interacting market systems. Different forms of market is a feature of capitalism. Competition is the regular mechanism of the market system. Monopolistic competition, also called as competitive market, where there is a large number of firms, each having a small proportion of the market share and slightly differentiated products. Oligopoly, in which a market is run by a small number of firms that together control the majority of the market share. Duopoly, a special case of oligopoly with two firms. Monophony, when there is only one buyer in market. Oligopoly, a market where many sellers can be present but meet only a few buyers. Monopoly, where there is only one provider of a product or service. Natural monopoly, a monopoly in which economies of scale cause efficiency to increase continuously with the size of the firm. A firm is a natural monopoly if it is able to serve the entire market demand at a lower cost than any combination of two or more smaller, more specialized firms. Perfect competition, a theoretical market structure that features no barriers to entry, an unlimited number of producers and consumers, and a perfectly elastic demand curve. Example of markets include, but not limited to, commodity markets, insurance markets, bond markets, energy markets, flea markets, debt markets, stock markets, online auctions, media exchange markets, and real estate market. Game theory. Game theory is a major method used in mathematical economics and business for modeling competing behaviors of interacting agents. Applications include a wide array of economic phenomena and approaches such as auctions, bargaining, mergers and acquisition, pricing, fair division, duopolies, oligopolies, social network formation, mechanism design, voting systems, and across such broad areas as experimental economies, behavior economies, information economies, industrial organization, and political economy. Labor economics. Labor economics seeks to understand the functioning and dynamic of the markets for wage labor. Labor markets function through the interaction of workers and employers. Labor economics look at the suppliers of labor, services, workers, the demand of labor service, meaning employers, and attempts to understand the resulting pattern of wages. Employment and income. In economics, labor is a measurement of work done by human beings. It is conventionally contrasted with such other factors of production as land and capital. There are theories which have developed a concept called human capital, referring to the skills that workers possesses, not necessarily their actual work. Welfare economics. Welfare economics is a branch of economics that uses microeconomics techniques to evaluate well-being from allocation of production factors as to desirability and economic efficiency within an economy, often relative to the competitive general equilibrium. It analyzes social welfare, however measured in terms of economic activities of the individuals that compose the theoretical society considered. Accordingly, individual with associated economic activities are the basic unit of aggregating to social welfare, whether of a group, a community, or a society, and there is no social welfare apart from the welfare associated with its individual units. Economics of information. Information economics, or the economics of information, is a branch of microeconomic theory that studies how information and information systems affect an economy and economic decisions. Information has special characteristics. It is easy to create but hard to trust. It is easy to spread but hard to control. It influences many decisions. These special characteristics, as compared with other types of goods, complicate many standard economic theories. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost of an activity or goods is equal to the best next alternative uses. Although opportunity cost can be hard to quantify, the effect of opportunity cost is universal and very real on the individual level. In fact, this principle applies to all decisions, not just economic ones. Opportunity cost is one way to measure the cost of something. Rather than merely identify and adding the cost of a project, one may also identify the next best alternative way to spend the same amount of money. The foregone profit of this next best alternative is the opportunity cost of the original choice. A common example is a farmer that chooses to farm their land rather than rent it to neighbors, wherein the opportunity cost is the foregone profit from renting. In this case, the farmer may expect to generate more profits alone. This kind of reasoning is a very important part of the calculation of discount rates in discounted cash flow investment evaluation methodologies. Similarly, the opportunity cost of attending university is the lost wages a student could have earned in the workforce, rather than cost of tuition, books and other requisite items. Those sum up the total cost of attendance. Note, the opportunity cost is not the sum of the available alternatives, but rather the benefit of the single best alternative. Possible opportunity cost of a city's decision to build a hospital on its vacant land are the loss of the land for a sporting center or inability to use the land for a parking lot, or the money that could have been made from selling the land, or the loss of any of the various other possible uses. But not all of these in aggregate. The true opportunity cost would be the foregone profit of the most lucrative of these listed. One question that arises here is how to determine a money value for each alternative to facilitate comparison and assess opportunity cost, which may be more or less difficult depending on things we are trying to compare. For example, many decisions involve in environmental impacts whose monetary value is difficult to assess because of scientific uncertainty. Valuing a human life or the economic impact of an Arctic oil spill involves making subjective choice with ethical implications. It is imperative to understand that no decision on allocating time is free, no matter what one chooses to do. There are ways giving something up in return. For example, of opportunity cost is deciding between going to a concert and doing homework. If one decides to go to the concert, then they are giving up valuable time to study. But if they choose to do homework, then the cost is giving up the concert. Any decision in allocating capital is likewise. There is an opportunity cost of capital defined as the expected rate one could get by investing in similar projects on the open market. Opportunity cost is vital in understanding microeconomics and decisions that are made. Applied microeconomics. Applied microeconomics include a range of specialized areas of study, many of which draw on methods from other fields. Industrial organization examine topics such as the entry and exit of firms, innovation, and the role of trademarks. Labor economics examine wages, employment, and labor market dynamics. Financial economics examines topics such as the structure of optimal portfolios. Public economics examine the design of government, tax, and expenditure policies and economic effects of these policies. Example, social insurance program. Political economy examines the role of political institutions in determining policy outcomes. Health economics examines the organization of healthcare systems, including the role of the healthcare workforce and health insurance program. Urban economics, which examine the challenges faced by the cities such as air and water pollution, traffic overcrowding and poverty, draws on the fields of urban geography and sociology. Laws and economics applies microeconomics principles to the selection and enforcement of competing legal rules and their relative efficiencies. Economic history examines the evolution of the economy and economic institutions using methods and techniques from the field of economics, history, geography, sociology, psychology, and political science. With this, we cover microeconomics. This is all for today. Hope you have understood about microeconomics. We'll see you again with the next topic as macroeconomics, which is yet another interesting topic. Till then, take care. Bye.